Hey everyone, it's Daria. Welcome back to my channel FullofLit, and today I'm going to be unhauling some books. I say some, like I am not currently surrounded by over 70 books right now. To be completely transparent with you, this unhaul experience has been a masterclass in self-loathing. So what I've done is divided the books into 3 distinct categories. The first category that these books can fall under is I need to accept that I am never going to read this. And I am ashamed to admit that this is probably my biggest category. So given that I haven't actually read any of these books, there's nothing much that I can tell you about them, and I think it's kind of boring for me to just sit here and pick them up one by one and read off the title. So instead, I figured I'd just hit you guys with a cool, sexy, suave montage of all the books that I no longer want to own. The second category of books that I'm going to unhaul are books that I've read partly, but don't see myself returning to and just don't want to see on my shelves anymore. The first book up is Paper Girls, the graphic novel. Due to my absolute devotion to the saga series, I figured that naturally I would also love this book. That was absolutely not the case. The story and plot felt stilted, and I couldn't see myself connecting with any of the characters. Next, we have the Runaways comic that was actually co-written, I believe, by Rainbow Rowell. I was a really big fan of the Runaways series on Hulu, and so I thought I would pick this up and that I would enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the show. I really need to stop assuming that just because a book or series is in any way related to something else that I like, that I'm also going to like that book or series. Next, we have the poetry collection Milk and Honey by Ruby Kaur. I read like 3 of these poems, and I'm pretty sure I got the gist of the whole book. So next, we have Confess by Colleen Hoover. I know that she's a very controversial author. You either love her or you hate her. There's really no in-between that I've seen. I have read other Colleen Hoover novels before, one of which I absolutely adored, and another of which I absolutely despised. This book was middling for me. I enjoyed it, but I really don't see myself ever going back to it. I can't remember anything that happened. The main character and her love interest were fine, they were okay, but they weren't interesting enough to hold my attention. Next, we have Lola and the Boy Next Door by Stephanie Perkins. I cannot tell you how many times I have picked this book up and put it down, and picked it up and put it down. I am done with this vicious cycle. Goodbye. Next, we have Firsts by Laura Elizabeth Flynn. I was very intrigued by the premise of this novel. This book follows a young woman who has sex with guys before they have sex with their girlfriends. So basically, she sees it as her duty to make sure that these guys are good enough in bed so that their girlfriends aren't disappointed. It's an intriguing premise, not a very great execution. For some reason, I just couldn't connect to the writing style, and I just wasn't a fan. Next, we have Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. I know so many people love this author, love her cute, summery contemporaries. And the thing about this book that kind of irritates me is that I got about 70% done with it, left it for a week, and then completely forgot what happened. And I just never felt the need to go back and reread it. I was not that interested in the story to begin with. Next, we have After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, an author that I have a tumultuous relationship with. The first book I ever read by TJR was Evelyn Hugo, and like so many people, I absolutely adored it. Then came Daisy Jones and the Six, which I just could not stand, mainly because of the title character. Like, how are you going to name a book Daisy Jones and the Six and then have your title character be the worst character in the whole damn book? I don't understand it, but congrats, I guess, you did that. I've also read another one of her novels, which I just gave 3 stars. I really don't think that I'm ever going to find anything that I like by her that can match Evelyn Hugo, so I'm just not gonna try. And finally, we have My Lady Jane by numerous authors. This book is meant to be a reimagining / retelling of the life of Lady Jane Grey. I really liked this book when I first picked it up. I was intrigued by the hints of magic in the story. I was really gunning for the romance, and I enjoyed the writing style. It was infused with humor. So given that rather glowing description, I really can't tell you why I didn't finish this book. Like, you know when you're reading a book and you're enjoying it passively, and let's say you put it down for a second, and you think about going back to it, and everything in your body is telling you no? I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but that is exactly the phenomenon that happened to me when I put this book down and thought about rereading it. I really thought of keeping this book just because I love the purple and I love the funky cover, but I'm not gonna do that. And finally, our third category is made up of books that I have read in their entirety and no longer want to own because I did not like them and or will never reread them. First up, we have a Wonder Woman graphic novel. I had to read this for one of my university classes, and it really just just dropped me in the middle of the story. I had no idea what was happening. I felt like they were 5 comics worth of backstory that I did not have while reading this. So I really feel like I have no reason to keep it. Next, we have this tiny little book called Get to Work. I don't remember anything about it, even though I annotated it to hell for a reading seminar I took. I just remember that it was about women working and feminism, and that's it. Next, we have A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Had to read this for a class, bought it for that class, am no longer taking that class, so I don't really want to own it anymore. Reservation Blues by Sherman Alexie. I cannot really remember anything about this book besides the fact that I had to read it my senior year of high school, and it was one of the few books that I had to read that year that I genuinely enjoyed. But I did not enjoy it enough to go back and reread it or to keep it on my shelves. Coming in with what I'm sure will be a slightly controversial pick is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. So many people adore this book and adore these authors, and I don't. I don't adore this book, that is. I actually don't mind Christina Lauren. I think that they're a talented duo. But for some reason, this book just wasn't it for me. I think it was because I couldn't really get behind the romance fully. I found that even when these characters got their happy ending, there was something holding me back from being happy for them. I don't know why. I'm not that much of a cynic, that I know. And yet, for some reason, just didn't really care when those two got together. Didn't really care for any part of their relationship, honestly. I can appreciate what this book was trying to do, discussing themes of both religion and LGBTQ identity, but it didn't do it for me. Next, we have 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. Do I need to explain myself? I really feel like I don't. I can't look at this book without thinking of that show, and then I remembered that they tried to redeem an honest-to-God rapist, and no thank you. And as for just the book itself, I disliked every single one of the characters. And not in that entertaining way where like, oh, that person's an anti-hero, or they're really unlikable. That makes them complex and interesting to watch. None of that. Just pure, I do not like this person. I do not want to be reading about them. Next, we have a book that I should have gotten rid of years ago because I dislike it that much, and that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Funny how I love Carry On and yet absolutely despise the book that spawned it. First off, this book is just way too long. You easily could have cut 50 to 100 pages and nothing about the plot would have changed, and in fact, I might have liked it better if it hadn't been such of a slog. The second thing that made this book such a poor read for me is the fact that I didn't like the main love interest. There was nothing interesting about him. He was one of the blandest men I've ever read about. The straw that broke the camel's back for me with this was that I did not like the main character, Kath, in the slightest. And that feels weird. It feels weird saying that because on paper, she should be everything that I want in a main character. She's a fanfic writer who has anxiety. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be our similarities that caused me to dislike her so much. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop that psychoanalytical train of thought right in its tracks, and I'm just gonna put this book away. Next, we have Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. I remember when I read this book, I was really enjoying it and intrigued by it. This book is set during the period of the Civil War in the United States, except now there's the extra plot twist of zombies roaming around. And the United States government has halted the war in order to fight these zombies, and they are taking Black Americans and Native Americans and putting them into these schools to train them to be fighters and to protect white Americans from these killer zombies. I remember reading this book and really enjoying it at the start, but as I kept reading, I started losing track of characters, of plot points. I was sort of going in and out when it comes to my concentration, and it got to the point that by the end of the book, I legitimately had no idea what was happening. Next, we have An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. I'm pretty sure this is the only John Green book I've read besides The Fault in Our Stars. For the life of me, I cannot remember what this book is about. I cannot recall a single plot point. The only reason I've kept this book on my shelves for as long as I have is because I have a nostalgic attachment to it. I read this book aloud to my mom during a particularly long road trip, and so I always kind of kept it for the sentimental value. But you know what? I have tons of memories with my mom, and there are other ones I can hold on to because I am no longer holding on to this book. Next up, we have My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This was a very popular contemporary novel in like 2014, 2015 on BookTube. This book follows a young woman who is neighbors to a very boisterous, loud family made up of tons of kids, and she falls in love with the eldest brother of that family. It's like a cute, fun summer romance, but that's about it. I don't remember anything about it other than the fact that I found it slightly entertaining and that the romance was kind of cute, and that is not enough for me to keep it on my shelves anymore. Next, we have The Fat Girl by Marilyn Sachs. This is a modern retelling of the Pygmalion myth. This very arrogant young man in high school decides that he is going to take the fat girl in this class under his wing and mold her into a beautiful woman. He He becomes increasingly obsessed with possessing her and controlling her. It's definitely something that can be deemed problematic, but I think that's kind of the entire point of the book. This dude is outrageously unlikable, and everything that he thinks and does should shock you. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, and there's really no need for me to have it on my shelves anymore. Next, we have 2 graphic novels, Adulthood is a Myth and Nimona. If you guys follow Sarah Anderson on Instagram, she has these little comics that she makes about her life. They're funny, they're cute, and that's why I bought this book, but after reading through it twice, there's really nothing new that I'm gonna glean from this. As for Nimona, I remember once again it was super popular on BookTube a few years ago, so I picked it up, I read it. It was fine, it was entertaining, it could have gotten gay, and then it didn't, which was disappointing. Next, we have Kill the Boy Band by Goldie Maldovsky. I love this cover. It's so minimalistic and yet so gorgeous. I don't know why. I'm obsessed with it. This book is about a group of friends who are absolutely obsessed with an international boy band. They find out which hotel these boys are staying at and they book a room there, and then over the course of the night, you are trying to figure out what happened that led them to kill one of the members of the boy band. This book is written for all of my fellow One Direction stans from the 2013 era. You know who you are. So it was a hilarious, nostalgic read. I did really enjoy this, but not enough to own it. If I do ever want to reread it, I can always just pick it up on ebook. Next, we have The Duff by Cody Keplinger. I have to say that this is one of the rare cases in which the movie is way better than the book. The Duff is not the lighthearted rom-com that you might believe it to be. It can get pretty dark. It deals with this girl and her relationship with her parents, her insecurities and self-hatred and self-destructive tendencies which lead her to sleep with this guy. It's pretty much the polar opposite of what the movie was, and yet I like the movie better. Next, we have I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. I know that this book is so well loved by so many people. It provided some amazing representation for non-binary folk. I am glad that it exists. I am glad that so many people love it and connect with it, but I am just not one of those people. And finally, rounding out this category, rounding out this entire unhaul, we have My Oxford Year by Julia Whelan. This book is about a young woman from America who goes to Oxford to work on a graduate degree, and when she gets there, she meets, is irritated by, and then falls in love with her teacher. This book was fine, it was cute and fun while it lasted, but I don't see myself ever rereading it, and it didn't capture my attention enough to keep it on my shelves. So that's it for me today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and you agree that it was a good idea I got rid of them, or if you think I should give them another shot. As always, my social media links can be found in the description below, so check those out if you would like, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!